which I think is where most people fall, somewhere in this range. And the takeaway here is the big red bar are the small, mid-sized businesses that have adopted cloud technology, and the green little bar is those that are planning on it in the next 6 months. And I think the key takeaway here is pretty much across the board, regardless of the size of your company. Most companies today are utilizing cloud services in some way or fashion, or plan to. And actually, which I guess may be not surprising, small to mid-sized businesses, the ones towards the top, actually have better adoption of cloud technology. Probably more nimble, more able to adapt and change. Larger companies may have more difficult time jumping through all the hoops to get that done. That might explain it, I'm sure. Thoughts, feel free to jump in. This one shows the benefits that people report by cloud adopters. So if you're utilizing the cloud, why? What are the benefits that you're seeing? And the top two, so 51% reduces the time spent managing IT. Right? So maybe you don't need 3 internal IT resources, you only need 2 or even 1 internal IT resource. Requires fewer internal IT resources. 94% produces security benefits. So security is a big benefit reported by cloud adopters. Improved service availability, 75%. Better uptime, and 96% creates less worry about outages. So I think between the worrying about outages, the risk of a server going down, and the security benefits of knowing that your system is secure, that's getting backed up regularly, and so on. And users, certain people are locked out from that information.
Is the word cloud just a new word for outsourcing? Or is it something bigger than that?
Cloud, I think, in general here, and actually I think it's the next slide, shows the different types of things that when people say the cloud, but effectively it's software that's available through an internet connection to a remote application or database or service.
So it's kind of actual outsourcing, is that?
Yeah, outsourced IT. So a lot of people will just say it's outsourced IT. But even that term's a little weird because we have customers of ours where Solution Systems is the IT department. Some of you can see it's very dark here. But we're Solution Systems is the outsourced IT services. We're providing all of the maintenance and monitoring and everything, but it's still physically on-premise servers and software that's running. But we're just the IT services. So it's kind of could be that too. But I'll show kind of some of the examples. So what are people doing with the time and the money that they're saving? 50% say they can pursue new opportunities because of the time that they're saving managing security in the cloud. So less time, more able to work on other projects that might have better, more meaningful impact at the bottom line. 70% reinvest the money saved as a result of moving to the cloud, and 36% report improved customer service after adopting the cloud. Seems low. So this is the one where, in terms of when someone says cloud, what are the types of things that they're talking about? This shows the numbers of the different types of uses of the cloud by different company size. Really, they're all kind of similar. So to just look at, let's pick this one right up here, top 20 to 99 employees. The biggest piece here is the dark blue piece. Dark blue piece here. This is 82%. So 82% of people, of companies say they're using the cloud for web hosting. So they put their website on some hosted, like Magento or some other Wix type of platform, web platform that hosts the company website. And so on. The next biggest one I think here is email hosting, 58%. So Microsoft Exchange, instead of buying a physical server, getting licensed for Microsoft Exchange, you get Exchange Online. Users can connect from anywhere. You don't have to purchase the physical servers, store the emails. It's all online as a service. Content filtering here. Not sure exactly what that is. Keith?
That'd be like web filtering of what people can get to from a content perspective. You can block, certain categories, things like that. People are using in the cloud.
Productivity solutions. So I think productivity solutions is where Office, like ERP, would fall in there as well. And then backup and recovery. So you have everything on premise, and you're doing physical tape backups or whatever today, and someone's got to carry that tape off premise once a week and switch out the tapes and everything. So moving to a web-based backup and recovery service. So those are automatically getting uploaded to an internet, so a place where you can restore from. So the future of cloud for small to mid-sized businesses, growth is increasing. Obviously, more and more people are adopting it. 3 in 10 mid-sized firms are adopting public cloud in the next 5 years. So that means utilizing, for example, Microsoft Azure, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So people are moving to that. And as in dollars, software as a service and applications, you can see these numbers here: $14 billion in 2012, $32 billion in 2015. And this isn't on here, but it's like 50 or 60, billion for next year, and it's increasing dramatically. And I've got on this slide, by the way, we can share these slides with everyone after this. But these are some of the sources. This is of some of these slides here. Microsoft, Gartner Group, Cloud Computing News, Forbes. So a bunch of different sources to pull this information together. So the big question, right? How does NAV utilize the cloud? How can you guys utilize the cloud for NAV? And so what I did is I just kind of, I'm sure we may be able to together think of some other things too, but just I want to put some examples together of things that are available or you may be already doing today. So how might you guys utilize the cloud? So the first thing is Microsoft is NAV Office 365 integration. So, Office 365, how many people are using Office 365? Anyone in here? Okay, so we got a lot of people. Good. So the new Microsoft is really pushing that model, the subscription model to Office. Instead of paying whatever, $400 or $500 for a copy of Office, you pay a much smaller fee per year per user. The user then can access and store documents on the cloud. They can run a local version as well on their desktop, and then those updates are automatically applied. So you don't have to upgrade. You don't get 4 years behind on your Office. You don't come in one day you realize you're running Office 2007, and you're like, what the hell? So it keeps you up to date, which is one of the big benefits that people are saying. Right? You don't have to worry about upgrades. Within Dynamics NAV, now there's Power BI integration. So Microsoft, again, what they didn't do is they didn't come out and say, we're going to create a reporting solution that all these different businesses can use, and we're going to deliver it so that you install it on your server and then you got to install it, run it, and get licensed for it. They released it as a hosted cloud-based subscription service. So again, it's free up to certain limits in data size and refresh frequency. And each user has their own login to Power BI, and you're integrating your data from NAV there. Or there's a paid subscription where you get unlimited data size and some other refresh options.
So if we've got a group of users, 40 users, as a business, do we kind of just allow individuals to just go to the BI and say, hey, if I want to use it, I'm just going to go use it? Or is it like a business decision?
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a business decision. Right, because you have the standard content pack that comes out. It's mostly sales data.
Yeah.
Your customer item sales data is what you're really looking at out of those predefined ones. But so you might say, who's going to use it? So we actually have a Solution Systems has developed a Power BI, what's it called? Like an implementation plan, which says, first sits down and says, okay, first of all, what's the goal? What are we trying to make available and to who? And then 2, what are the data sources that we need to pull from in order to do it? 3, what do we want that presentation to look like? 4, how do we build that in Power BI? And 5, how do we share it? And who do we share it? So I think the answer to your question, if you've got, let's say, 40 users, I think where you start is you say, let's start at the top, management level, executive level, let's share information with them so they have a nice, slick user interface. And then you start maybe drilling it down to the mid-level management and below. Not sure how, it could be an end-user tool as well. And where it gets to be an end-user tool is if you're using Power BI, you can build a Power BI chart or graphic and embed that now right within an NAV page, right on the NAV role center. So the charts that you see on the role center are actually Power BI. So long answer.
Well, what triggered it was that, it's free as long as you don't overuse it, right? So to me, I say, well, I actually want to update something once a day. It might be free, but the company probably won't want me to go to that without this being.
Yeah, so how it works is, so this is why we're into these types of details. So someone at your organization, so triangle.com, whatever the URL is, has to create an account, right? And that domain name is what's key. So that account now becomes associated with Jim at triangle.com. Now when you develop your dashboards and reports, Jim can share them only with other people that have that same domain name, have that same Office 365 domain name. So there are limitations of, that's one basic right off the bat security mechanism, that he can't go share that with other people. It's only authenticated Office 365 email addresses.
And even though you could purchase the Power BI, if you said, okay, we're using it more and more, when you think about that, if I'm in Power BI, then I don't need an NAV license. So a lot of customers will look at it either way, right? I'm not in NAV now, I'm sitting in Power BI, but the data is being extracted and pulled in. So it's kind of that give and take. It's a subscription. So not everyone needs a subscription to it, but possibly some folks who are not NAV users that just want to look at data.
In the paid version, by the way, I don't know if I said this, $9.99 per user per month. So that's the full rate. I think that's the charge.
Yeah, about that. So yeah,
It's $10 a user a month.
If I don't need to be an NAV to pull reports, I could be a Power BI user. So just information to think about.
So you saw me demonstrate NAV online maps, right? Effectively what I was doing there, I'm in NAV and I'm connecting to Microsoft's map software. right? So the Maps is this cloud service that I'm using. It's a free one. I'm using it, I'm just integrating to send the data out there, and I'm leveraging the cloud. That's me leveraging the cloud in NAV. Even if I'm running on NAV on-premise here, I'm still utilizing the cloud for that application. Talk about Microsoft Exchange Online, so having everyone access their email through Exchange Online, a subscription. And then within NAV, there are some add-on solutions that utilize and have been utilizing the cloud for years. So one is an add-on solution called Charge Logic. So it's a credit card management add-on solution built within NAV. You can be on a sales order, you enter your credit card information, it encrypts it, and then sends it through the internet to the payment processor to validate that card information and return back an authorization. Again, utilizing the cloud as a service. eShip is another add-on solution. Some people are here using eShip. FedEx Web Services integration. I don't know if we have any eShip gurus here, but I think like 3 years ago, NAV switched to a full real-time web services integration with FedEx. I remember it was kind of a big deal. But it's NAV communicates with FedEx real-time through the internet to their cloud service. New one, address verification, is another add-on solution. So you're entering a new customer address, you hit a button, sends the address up to an address verification service, make sure that's a legit address, and sends back the result going, yep, that's good. A lot of times, people get dinged for surcharges from their shippers. They didn't put valid addresses in there, so it avoids those. Avalara is another one. So Avatax is a solution where you're in NAV, you're on a sales order, you enter your information, you release the order, it connects through the internet to Avatax's sales tax engine, sees what your order is, what they're buying, and kicks back the sales tax rate. Another existing add-on solution, many NAV customers using it to calculate sales tax rates. And Zetadocs. I think a lot of people here may be already using the drag and drop technology within NAV, where I can take an email or a PDF document or an Excel file or a CAD drawing, and I can drag it and drop it into a record in NAV. You may be, if you're using Office 365, saving all of those dragged documents on a cloud-based SharePoint site. So your document archive is effectively on the cloud. And then another one I added in here, so Gorilla Expense. So it's just an example of an expense reporting solution. It's like this is a kind of a popular app for people to develop cloud solutions for, because people are on their phones and on their tablets and on the road entering their travel expenses. They want to make sure they can submit it right now and get it to the accounting department before they get back to the office so they can get their money more quickly. So they have an integration where you're utilizing expenses online and it's passing back the data into NAV purchase documents. Your purchase invoice, your purchase journal. Backups and recovery. So that's another big one. And this one, I think, whether you're running NAV on premise or you're running NAV on the cloud or in a hosted environment, backups and recovery. Also, you can do that to a cloud service. And we have, I think, more and more customers of ours are going that route. And then, I guess the last thing on here is kind of the biggest thing, and maybe the area most people will dive into deeply, is Azure server deployment. So the scenario for, saying what is Azure, right? I don't know if this is, some people, you know this, other people like, what's Azure? Web services is. Okay. So Amazon Web Services, like Amazon's, right, they're hosting. It's like they host servers. Azure is the same thing for Microsoft. So Azure is the ability to set up a server, a virtual server, in the Microsoft data centers. These data centers are strategically located. There's, I think there's one in Chicago. There's throughout the U.S., overseas. And you basically are purchasing space and processing power in their data center to create your own server. And it's, from a user's perspective, you remote desktop to the server just like you might today to your internal server. We can have full admin rights to the servers. We can install what we need to install on it. You can connect NAV from your desktop through the internet to connect to that Azure hosted NAV server. So the most common scenarios we're seeing today are two. One is an existing NAV customer who has old aging equipment on hand, on premise, and they, for whatever reason, want to move it to the cloud. They don't want to purchase a whole new server, relicense all the software. It's a big upfront investment. Instead, you can implement an Azure server and you pay on a monthly basis. So there's no upfront investment. It's a monthly pay-as-you-go service. Microsoft actually looks at each server, each subscription, and they look at how much processing power you had allocated that month, how much bandwidth you used, and how much data, how much space you used, and they calculate a monthly charge for you, and that's the charge.
It is a month by month, so let's say we have some customers who are very seasonal, and they may beef up the servers during their seasonal time, pay a little more, but more horsepower during that time, and then scale it back during their slow time, so they're paying less per month at that time. So different options when it comes to, think of it just like renting space.
Right, yeah, exactly. So there's an Azure portal that you have access to, or we have access to on your behalf, and we can crank that up if you're getting busy or have, whatever more processing power is needed. Turn it down, and you pay as you go. It's like literally per minute or per hour that they break this down to in terms of how many resources you're using. So that's the one scenario, and then another scenario is even simpler. New NAV clients who are just saying, you know what, I don't want any upfront investment. I'm just going to deploy NAV on an Azure server, and now you can even do subscription NAV pricing. So you can do it truly as like a month-to-month type model.
Does it have to be Azure?
It does not, no. So you mean in terms of the different, like the hosting company that you use? Yep, no, I think, well, we have customers that are using multiple different hosting companies, Amazon Web Services, what are some, Merrimack,
TierPoint.
There's one, yeah, TierPoint is another. So there's a whole handful.
Does not have to
Yeah, it does not have to be. Effectively, they're just, like I said, you're renting space in black boxes. And the key thing with, when you're looking at, if you're looking at this as an option, is you want to be able to assure that you have full administrative rights to these servers and that you can install what you want to install on them, right? And be able to set up users and control all of that access yourself, either yourself or through Solution Systems or another partner that you may have that's doing IT. Anything to add on that, guys?
No, we kind of covered that area of it.
So I think that's it. And the last point I had, and then just any questions that anyone has. We got some technical resources here to help answer some questions. But the last point I just want to make is, so regardless of if you own NAV, today you have flexibility in terms of if you're running it on premise or on the cloud. There's no difference in terms of the features or functions that you can be licensed for. It's just your deployment model. Are you going to deploy it as an on-premise deployment or as a hosted? Any questions?
What do you recommend for most customers, new customers, and existing customers, for their deployment today?
I don't think we do recommend. I think we provide options.
Yeah, we provide options. I would say that the last few new NAV implementations have been on Azure because it's gotten much, much better than it was a couple of years ago. Pricing is more predictable because at first it wasn't. So we were a little bit scared to recommend something and not knowing what that monthly investment would be. Some of the hosting partners will actually give you a fixed fee monthly investment, and we have partners like that as well. What we have found so far, and every account is different, is that on the Azure environment it's actually less expensive than that fixed monthly rate. Because obviously with the fixed monthly rate, some of them are building in the transaction data, right? So you're paying for it, and maybe you don't really need it. So, but last few have been on Azure, and we've been pretty impressed with the
Yeah.
service. But again, it doesn't matter to us. Azure's not solution systems, but it's something that we found that we're recommending.
I think there's, I don't know, Keith, if you want to come up here, we maybe get some technical questions here, but I think some of it too has to do with the specific requirements. So, for example, where you're at geographically, do you have a solid, reliable internet connection, right?
So everybody, this is Keith.
Keith?
For those that don't know him.
Infrastructure group?
Yeah, IT infrastructure group.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing too. I mean, yeah, it depends on, every customer, every person is different. So that's why, like Ken was saying, there's different options for everybody. Some customers, you get a new customer that's a startup company, and they don't want the expenses, so cloud makes a perfect example. You have a company that has a full staff of, they're quite large, they have a full staff of people already available, servers, infrastructure already in place that communicates maybe with multiple systems in their environment already, that we can't bring it outside. Then that's those sides you probably want to go to for those kind of purposes. But each person, each customer, we seem to have a different, I guess you'd say, a mentality.
Yeah, or regulatory.
Yeah.
Some have to follow regulatory things. They can't, based on their banking and certain information, based on the type of customer they are, they cannot go to the cloud. It has to be on-prem. So every situation is different, but if you're interested in learning more about it too, and just saying, hey, I'm just wondering what it would be, or if it's time to maybe think about upgrading servers, it's definitely worth looking at.
I think it's really changed too, even like local integrations that you need, I think, right? Like, so if you have a local server interfacing with things like scales and label printers and those types of things, I think you can still do those. Maybe there's just a few extra steps that you have to do to open those ports and
that's changed drastically in the last year or two as well.
Yes.
Right. That used to be a very tough thing to do. Was eShip, for mentioning,
Right.
was a very tough thing to do in the cloud because of all the add-ons of scanners and label printers and scales.
Yeah.
That's become a totally different way. The way that they've, in NAV 2015, 2016, the way that they've implemented the client, making it so much thinner to run over the internet and run over wide area networks instead of having to be local. So we've seen a lot of that change as well.
Any other questions, thoughts?
How about linking the vision up to Azure and Directory services?
Yep, that's definitely possible. If you're, you can do Azure AD syncing, like some customers want to have a local Active Directory still in your office, regular server. You can set up the Active Directory syncing service, and then use that with an Azure hosted server for NAV, just for NAV.
So NAV would run off the local directory and then you sync that with the Azure directory?
Exactly. Yeah. And the same thing with not just with NAV, even if you're running Office 365 for hosted Exchange, you can do the same kind of thing with syncing AD from your local, so that you're not having an Active Directory and creating multiple accounts and, okay, I gotta create an account on my local AD for them, I gotta go on to Office 365 and create another account, and nothing's staying in sync with passwords. By using that synchronization, it makes it all kind of seamless. One person has their one login for email, NAV, everything. So that's definitely a possibility, definitely a way to do it.
Great. Other questions? Jokes?
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
I had one question, I probably wasn't paying attention, but like the Avalera, like the add-on, that's a separate add-on that puts on, should we need sales tax help?
It's a subscription service, yeah, so, yeah, it's the
Yeah.
Avid tax is a
But
subscription
it
service.
integrates.
Completely integrated with.
Yeah, they have a set of NAV objects that you install into NAV, and it's designed then to call out to the web service,
Yeah.
calculates the rate and brings it back.
Perfect. Okay.
And then they store that information on their database, so then you can actually leverage their filing services too.
Yeah, I've talked to them in the past when I was on a different ERP,
Okay.
former
Yeah.
life, but,
Mhm.
so it seems pretty seamless.
It's okay, could you explain again this credit card how much one costs?
Sure.
Oh, sure, the credit card add-on. Yeah, so the credit card, Charge Logic, so it's a company, I mean, what they do is they've built software, credit card-based software to integrate with NAV. And they work with many different processing gateways. So what you do, it's an add-on solution, so you purchase the add-on solution, we install some objects into your NAV database. And then there's really two things you can do with it. One, you can, if a customer, let's say, just owes you money on account, you can go into their account and create a payment, put in credit card information, it encrypts it, it's fully PCI compliant software. It encrypts it, and then you can submit the charge transaction through the internet, sends it, you integrate that with your processor, sends back the approval code and everything, and then when you post it, it writes the payment and applies that against the invoices within NAV. The second thing you can do with it is if you have open sales orders, you can apply a credit card against an open sales order and book that amount or hold that amount against that order, knowing that it's going to ship hopefully within the next week or so. And then it'll renew that authorization if it needs to. There's a function to do that. But ultimately, it holds that money on the card, and then when you invoice the customer, it charges the card automatically, writes the payment automatically, and applies it to the invoice, all in one step.
Thank you.
So it's really nice if you do a lot of high volume of credit card type sales orders, it just automatically charges those cards in the back end.
If you're doing any e-commerce, it'll also go out to your e-commerce site, allow the customer to pay by credit card, and then process the same way through NAV.
They have it's a product called Charge Logic eConnect. That is a piece that works with NAV, so that, because that's if you've done anything with e-commerce before with credit cards, that's a big hassle. Is how do you capture a customer's credit card over here on this e-commerce site, and then somehow get that into your NAV sales order so that you can charge the card when you ultimately ship and invoice the customer. So that Charge Logic provides.
And does the credit card encrypted credit card information reside in NAV, or does
Yeah.
it reside with Charge Logic?
It resides in the NAV SQL database, and it actually comes, there's an encryption key that you have to install. And yeah, so even if you were to go, for example, like into the SQL backend database and look at the table data, it's encrypted in there. So as soon as you type it in and leave the field, it encrypts it, and all you can see are the last 4 digits.
It also in the case, I know you're kind of going with security, if someone got a hold of a copy of your database for whatever reason, it can't be opened as well on another environment because without that encryption key, it doesn't bring that across.
question.
So does this use PayPal or just goes bypassing go straight to your bank account?
Well, Charge Logic, yeah, they would go straight to your bank.
So there's, yeah, you're
That's
payment
awesome.
gateways, so
Yeah.
whether you're using Authorized.net, Nearest, or
Yeah,
There
for
is a
like
payment
First Data,
First Data.
Authorized.net are some of the big payment processors, used to be Payment Tech.
Yeah, but
Right. There's a list of like 30 of them, so.
Right.
So you can keep your.
Yep, so you have the service of that. The PayPal thing, that was different. That was just an NAV PayPal integration where you can embed that link on the document. If you have a PayPal account, you could go that way too. That's like a completely separate option. All right.
Good, so I think we're gonna call up,
Yeah, so I think, I just want, so we wanted to just create an opportunity thank everyone for coming out here today. And we've invited some of our NAV experts. So if any of you have any questions on features, functionalities, specifically maybe issues that you're dealing with today, questions that you've been wondering about, or other product type things, we've got Mark Hike is here. So he's can help answer any warehouse and manufacturing questions. Dee Dahlman is here, so she's, amongst other things, service management and jet reports. So she can help
And
with those
Obaid,
things.
of course,
Obaid
is
is
here
here, the ultimate e-ship guru.
ultimately. Right,
he-
so any questions, if anyone has any additional questions, product related, we're here to help, answer anything, dig a little deeper into some things. If not, we should all be here. And, but we're here to answer, it's just open forum.
Is there any type of vendor rating system? For example, if you go to like close out a PO, you can embed like different types of stars per service, did it get here on time, et cetera. I'm envisioning being able to run some type of report quarterly, monthly, year end that just shows the vendors hit this category, yes or no, and then we can dig into orders a little deeper.
There's nothing standard. There is a report, it's part of a report pack that we have. It's called a vendor performance report. But really, I would say in terms of, I think what you're saying, it's limited to on-time vendor performance in terms of on-time delivery. So each vendor, each purchase line, did they meet the requested delivery date based on the posting date? And what was their performance percent?
Basically, look at 2 days, it gives you whether you were on time or not and by how much. So minus 2 days means you're behind by 2 days. Plus 2 means they delivered ahead. So it's a simple report that calculates on 2 days.
were you looking for on-time performance or more for like if they?
Yeah, I guess with a lot of our vendors, projects go through different stages, so we get the order, a mold needs to be made, was the mold made on time, were there issues with that, can we make quick little notes about it? Just different stages of, did they ship on time, breakage, different issues we just would like to combine into one big report and be able to kind of evaluate them, and as we bring more buyers in, they can quickly know who our top people are.
Is there anything available where you could provide to a customer the ability to go in and look at inventory and price on an item specific to them? So in other words, not have to go through a website, but just do it from a tablet or their phone, just for that customer log in when they log in.
So more just a customer portal.
Customer specific, and then actually be able to place an order through that same app.
Yeah.
Yeah, without it being on a website, so there is a customer portal, there's a product called eShop. And, it sounds like there's a few people that are interested in that, so what we'll do is we'll schedule possibly a webinar in the next few weeks for them to kind of walk through some of that stuff. But part of their software, they have a customer portal, that allows your customers, B2B, log in with their login, view their past orders, pull up a template of things that they've purchased, place orders, pay. If they have open invoices, they can pay through the portal. So
Look up items.
look up items, it's completely integrated to your NAV database.
And you have that, right? You have to expand
No,
your
they have
website.
expanded.
We have a website, we want something that's more slimmed down.
Most of them, so
You know the items.
narrower view of that web. The way, how you describe
Here's
it,
something that
now,
they could use from a phone or an iPad. Yeah.
I mean, each app is responsive to phone and tablet, so it does shrink down as soon as, it responds to it. But it is just, it is a web shop because it is on the web. It's not on your NAV system.
and for licensing also, you would have to go through like a web interface, so to speak?
Right, because otherwise
you
you're
would have a
paying,
user license.
user licenses if you're, in theory, you could allow them to directly connect, giving them a login and a password, right? But now you're paying, when they log in, you're paying a license for that. You don't want to do that. So that's why the web allows you to eliminate the licensing.
Yeah, I wonder, we've created a basic B2B customer portal that's real-time connection to NAV. Like you said, very limited. You have a basic catalog. It's real-time grabbing the customer's prices. You can create an order, and you can look up order status. And that's about it out of the box. And that sounds like that's what you're looking for?
So we can show you that.
Similar, yeah.
It's something we wrote for another customer and that we've created for other customers. But
Yeah.
it's available.
Maybe, yeah. I can take a look at that. Yeah, it's really, the idea was, right, exactly that we don't need all the bells and whistles that go along, credit cards, all that stuff, shipping integration. I just want the customer to log in, look up an item, place a quick order, hit submit, get it sent in.
No paying though and no credit card, right?
Right, very simple.
Yeah, just to make it easy for customers to get an order, into your system and get it out.
Yep, yeah, so, yeah.
In 2017, how do you assign permissions to users?
In terms of like what they can, so how do you assign permissions to users? In terms of what you can do, within NAV. So in 2009 and earlier, they were called security roles. And what they did is the same concept is now called permission sets. So it's the same idea. You have these different roles, like read customer entries, edit customer entries, post sales documents, and then you assign those to different users. Or if you have an Active Directory group, let's say you have 6 customer service people, you assign the permissions to the group, and then you put people into the group, and they inherit the permissions of the group. But it's similar idea.
But
Was it
correct me if
2009?
I'm wrong, Ken, easier to set up, because in 2009 and before, it was pretty tedious to set up that. Right. That's a good way to put it.
It was, yeah, so,
And a lot of people just didn't do it.
Plus you can use role centers a little more effectively
Yeah.
too as well for those permissions as well.
right. So there is a tool now with 2017 where for that you can start recording permissions. So you hit a button, it starts recording. You go in and you do all the stuff that you want that user to be able to do. And when you're done, it writes all the permissions that are needed to do what you just did. So it basically builds the role, and then you save that role and you can assign that to someone. Then you go do another set of things, and then you create a role for that. And then you
You can
assign
edit
those.
it too.
Yeah, once it, right, because you did all this stuff, you created a new item and everything, but you forgot to click on the substitutions. So the user logs in and they can't add an item substitution, so you just go in and you add that one little permission to the role.
So that is way easier than it was.
Yeah, and to take something I said way earlier this morning, is the permission sets are much more useful now. I think before, people just said, you know what, I just want to get by with the basic security. But now, if you invest that time in it, when a user logs in, NAV clears away all of the things that that user doesn't have access to. So their world becomes much simpler, much easier to use, because they don't have all those buttons, those 20 buttons along the top, or all those menu options. They're gone. So it creates a much simpler user interface to it.
On that note, if you had sales reps and you only wanted them to see their particular customers for sales, would you have to set up a separate profile for each rep then?
Different, yeah, so there is like the data security field where you could set a roll-up that has limited filtered, like by salesperson code, and then you assign that to a user. But I think you can copy roles, right?
Yeah, there's a security filter involved, but you may still need a page for each person.
A page.
But it's easier to set those pages up than what it was with the 2009?
Yes, the interface has just become better. So the steps may look the same, but like Ken was saying, it's much easier to do everything now just because the way you can copy that, save that, and so on.
Yeah.
So in their case, they apply a security filter, but it's still the page file, so that there's a landing page for that sales page.
And then if they were in the reports and they did a drill down as to who all purchased a particular item, they'd only see which of their customers purchased, not everybody's?
Right. So that's another security filter that you put in for that salesperson, and it goes down to like that.
So it's still pretty intense to set it up and get them all.
Yes. So so permissions is tedious, right? It's just that they have now newer tools and better tools just to make it a little bit easier.
If you had security set up in 2009, would they carry over to the newer version?
Yes.
To say one thing in my experience with doing it, it's nice. I just every week I go back to it. I just take away more tables from people. And it's an ongoing security thing. And you get immediate feedback if you've taken away something. It's really explicit what's gone wrong and why they don't have access to it. If you quickly go change it back and you're like, sorry, oops. That's my approach to security.
Our recommendation is, your role center should be set correctly. So the first step that we recommend is that when you log into your role center, you should see home. You should see perhaps posted documents, maybe a couple more, but the department should be gone. So between the home and the ribbon at the top where you have access to your reports, you should have access to about 99.9% of the things. So once that is done, and that's just access level security, so to speak, because you can't see it, you can't get to it, because once department goes away, you can't do the search anymore.
Yeah, but if you take department away, can you still use that little search box in the upper?
Only for home. It does not search. If you take the department away, you can search for it. The idea behind that is that whatever that role center, whatever the user needs, is already on their role center. So that's not enough, but that's a good start, and I think it takes away 80 to 85% of security concerns that you may have. What it does not address is, so let's say I'm a sales order taker, and I'm on the line. And I can always put in a GL account, and then from there drill up to the GL account. You see what I mean? So try to make sure you understand there is a permission set security. That's what Ken's talking about. And it takes some time to do it, and like Frank said, it can be a trial and error. But if you just start with role, as I call it, role center security, you've accomplished a lot, and then you can plan for the long term and maintenance. So that is something that you should be able to do very quickly.
And I think what too we kind of do, we should have, I don't know if anyone's worked with Simeon is one of our consultants who handles a lot of our security and role center configuration. One of the things that we do with those permission sets is we can create a single permission set that has everything in it. So the most common example we get is this person should be able to see, they really do all of this different stuff, except they shouldn't see any of the financials or bank stuff, right? So one of the things that we've done is we create a role that has every object permission in it, page and report. And then we have a list predefined that we've created that lists all of those financial focused ones. The chart of accounts page, the account schedules report, the trial balance report, the bank account ledgers, those bank and financial pages. And we remove those. So what you're left with then is this permission set that has everything except that stuff. And then you can use Rapid Start to copy that, import it with different permissions. So you're kind of using the Rapid Start to import and export data combined with some of those tools. So I think it's gotten a lot better. I know I would say from 2009 to 2017, it's gotten at least 50% better. At least it's still, to this point, it's still tedious because of the granularity that it allows you to get down to.
In 2009, the departments menu item passed the meeting if you have it on, correct? That's true.
Yeah, I think it did change. I think in 2009, you had to leave the data on there without doing a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, without doing a whole bunch, okay. Does that change?
Yes. Yeah, 13, I think that changed.
Okay.
So you can remove it for certain users. You can do by rules.
So per role, okay, so per
For everybody.
In 2009, if you removed it for everybody, even your super users that would want it. Right? So you had to, now you can do it by role.
And what about forms in 2015 and beyond? 2015 and beyond, is it easier to create forms?
We didn't talk about that.
Oh, report, like documents, invoices, and purchase orders.
Yeah, we didn't talk about
Purchase
that.
orders?
Yeah, so I think it was it 2015, 2013, 02? So in one of the previous releases, Microsoft released what's called Microsoft Word document reports. So what you do is, I don't know if anyone's ever gone like into Microsoft Word and you hit new document, and like you can pick what type of a new document you want to make. You probably always hit blank or whatever, but you can pick invoice. And it opens like Microsoft's library where there are all of these invoice templates. So what you can do is pick a template out of there and then in NAV merge in the fields that you want from NAV into the Microsoft Word template. So you can have multiple styles of quotes or orders, invoices, credit memos, and so on. And I think you can choose which one you want to, like you can have a version of both, like which version you want to actually print or use.
And in 2017, you could actually assign that to a customer.
It started in 2015, I just want to make sure that we correct
Yes.
that. And then it has gotten better. To the
Yes.
point where 2017, you can do it by customer.
Right.
Now, caveat.
You're such a down.
I know. Well, we're in the real world, right? So, the one issue that you have to be aware of is that when you're using these Microsoft Word style document templates, you're simply merging fields from NAV into the document, right? You cannot add source code logic in. So if on your invoice document, let's say you've got logic built on the header that says, if this field is blank, then hide the caption, or if this is set to this, then print this over here. If you've got logic like that that's built into those documents, then you really can't use those Word templates effectively. And maybe you can change the layout of the invoice or the document, or just go, you know what, so it prints a caption with a blank value. That's okay. But in that case, you can use it. But that is one note. You can't add, in NAV, a lot of times when we build those documents, we're adding like source code logic in terms of how stuff prints, where it prints, or what gets suppressed. So that's kind of a caveat to that.
We're running 2009, and when you
run any of the, download any of the reports into Excel. You have to deal with the merging of columns and stuff. Does that still exist in 2017?
Yeah, so if you're in NAV and you hit send to Excel, right from there, yes. You have the header, or the header creates like a merged line across. There are more reports that have a print to Excel button in the checkbox, in the options tab. You know, aged AP, aged AR, inventory valuation, trial balance report, and those. But they're
keep adding for customers.
But there are more and more where they're adding that box in there to send it to Excel. And also, there's another tool that's available in NAV called a query. So what a query is, and there's a new feature in 2017 that allows you to build these pretty easily. What a query is if anyone's ever gone to try to build a report before, you know, the first difficulty is knowing which table do I use, and then even more difficult, I need two tables. How do I link those two tables together? It's really complicated. So what a query does is you write this query of what data you want to pull from which tables, and it flattens it. So now you can take, let's say, all of your customer ledger entries, or whatever it is, run the query, pull it into Excel, and then just use pivot tables or whatever you need to do, but it pulls it in a grid style format.
And then the Excel add-in that updates the NAV add-in that updates the Excel spreadsheet we did not talk about. And that was not available in 2009.
I was going to address that, Marna.
That's pretty impressive.
Right, so to your point, you know how the reports, it depends on the report, right? If it's a grouping report, then it goes to Excel, it will be merged. And then the cells are not aligned one below the other, so you can't do your totaling correct, right? That's the issue. So a lot of things that we're doing now is, a lot of times, we're creating a custom page, so to speak, in NAV, with all the fields that you need. Then all you do is filter and then take it to Excel. Through that send to Excel feature that Sarah just talked about, and there's improvement in that feature where you can refresh the data much easier.
Right.
So answer your question, sometimes these reports may not go to Excel the way you want as rows of data. So two options are, A, we can make a change for you in the report, so it does go that way, or B, make a custom page where you do the filtering. A lot of things that you saw today in the features is like, you know how you use NAV online on the screen, and they take it to paper as needed, and they send to Excel workspace.
Right, and the difference is once you've sent it to Excel, the feature I'm talking about is if I updated my NAV database, let's say I changed a customer's region or whatever it may be, and when I go back to Excel and refresh it, it will read back from the NAV database and update it again. That's a new
So you can save it and use it over and over again, right?
You can continue to use it, it's just the NAV add-in in Excel now, and that came out, I believe, in 2016.
And with 2017, there's actually an edit in Excel function
Yes.
now.
I mean, that
So
is
you actually
really-
can edit the data in Excel and write it back, passing NAV's validations to it.
So again, that integration, seamless integration with those Microsoft tools has gotten better. And that, yeah, of course, we couldn't show everything today, but that is a pretty nice feature. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one about forecasting. Is there any forecasting granular? Much of our demand comes from our customers in forecasting, and we have trouble splitting that out from firm orders. Is there a effective granular in 2017, or how does Cortana Intelligence fit into this?
I'll speak to the forecast and then you speak to the Cortana. So there is, I don't know if you use production forecasting at all, the production forecasting now?
No.
Okay. So it does let you go ahead and put in your forecast by day, by week, by month, however you want to do that. And then MRP basically picks that up. So if I had 1,000 out there, it would say, hey, I have a production forecast for 1,000, I need to make 1,000. It also looks at the demand, like if you had sales orders or anything like that, it kind of consumes that into the forecast, and we'll consume those two together to come up with 800. You know, if you ended up with a real demand of 700, it's going to make 800. And it kind of consumes that up into your forecast until you go more. Once the demand goes higher, it would tell you, hey, you need more at this time, and MRP would let you know that. So they do have that. Also, they have the blanket orders, kind of in NAV treat like a forecast in some ways too. So some people would use those as a forecast, because it kind of works the same way where it consumes into those and treats those blankets a little different than a normal sales order demand. So there is those two options of production forecast, they call it, and blanket orders that would do it.
Well, no, in terms of Cortana, you're getting, I mean, Cortana is just gonna look at the actual demand, run it through a series of like standardized algorithms, you know, to calculate what does the projection look like. I think it sounds like in your case, you're getting a forecast, you wanna maintain those forecasts,
Sure.
and then have it NAV suggest for you what you need to be producing. So I think the production
A
forecast
little more rigid. Okay.
sounds like.
Yeah. Now, the intelligence portion, I would expect much better output a year from now versus today because of all the gyrations in the course of the year.
But I think it'll look at, if you've got history for an item in there and you plug it in right now, I've seen, and it'll look at that history that's there.
Okay. So it will look
Start
back for you.
suggesting, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just looking at your item ledger, all your ledgers.
Has any improvements been made to like the planning worksheet? And I was in it almost like nervous with MRP because I could have an order that's already scheduled, but if the date is off by 1 or 2 days, it's telling me to cancel what I have and then issue it, which, you know, obviously in the production world, you drive yourself crazy.
But there is dampening, right?
Yeah. What version are you on?
No.
9, okay. So since then, there has been improvements. There's more fields on the item card, so dampeners I can control by the item instead of globally, right?
Okay.
I have rescheduling periods, so exactly what you're talking about, they have a lot of accumulation in this rescheduling period that you can use, which basically can say, I want to get rid of it if it's 4 months before or 4 months after the change date. Give me a reschedule and not a cancel new, so that I can look at that and see it. It basically, what they try to do is get rid of all the cancel and new.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to cancel a PO.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to cancel production order. So they've built in these new fields that now allow you better, how you set them to, one, shut down a little bit of the noise so you don't have as many lines created, and two, get rid of these cancel and news if you don't want them. I'm not sure what version, it's like 15 or
13.
13 or 2 maybe.
Let's look like 60.
Yeah.
That was
I have
another
a quick
question.
question about the add-on for easy security. Moving forward, I know you mentioned the new permission sets and they sound very similar. So my question is, if we decide to upgrade in the future, is it going to be able to bring those forward? Anything done in easy security as far as permission sets? Or is it going to be more of a toss easy and security and start from scratch if we upgrade?
Security? So
Yeah.
that would come forward. Some of the stuff he was talking about is similar, but the easy security, if you're used to using that and have done that, it does have some more features than what the new NAV does.
So the vendor for easy security, they release their feature for the new version of NAV as NAV comes out. He is like one of the main authors of NAV. So that's what he's planning. So every time they came out with a new release, he has a new release.
So it won't be wasted work doing all the permission sets and.
No.
No, as a matter of fact, so when you upgrade, we would get the latest and greatest version of Easy Security for 2017. And so now you would not only have what you had, but all the other new features and functionality that's there too.
And that holds true for all the add-ons.
That's true.
Touch on it. Does NAV have a forecasting module? FP&A?
AFP,
FP&A?
advanced forecasting and procurement.
No financial budgeting, like
Cash
financial.
Well, financial forecasting,
Yeah.
cash flow forecast.
Just traditional, hey, here's our 2017 budget, P&L down.
Yeah, there's there's full GL budgets built in standard. Now, how you build a budget, right? You can manually go into a worksheet and build your budget out for the next year. You can copy historical entries, so like, let's take last year, let's increase it by 20%. Or you can copy a previous budget or import a budget from Excel.
So it's more static, just getting the data into the budget field for each expense.
Correct. Right, and then I think what, I see a lot of people doing is taking, like, using the account schedules to say, let's say it's July, show me my actuals for year-to-date, actuals through July, and then my budgets, the numbers that I have in there for the rest of the periods. I can kind of do a full year forecast as of whatever month I'm at.
The cash flow, is there any cash flow?
2016 cash flow for 15.
Correct, yeah. So it's a whole little module that they've created called cash flow management. So what you do is you create a little cash flow chart of accounts, and you define what are your main categories of cash flow increases and decreases. And those could be payables, purchase orders, sales invoices, journal entries, fixed, like a payroll. You just put in a fixed payroll estimate every month, and it actually generates a chart, cash flow chart, projecting which way you're kind of trending in terms of cash flow.
With full drill down into the details from the chart. It's a very nice feature. Yeah, that was improved in 16.
Yeah.
Okay. Definitely here in 17.
Thank you.
Anything else? I know we've probably overloaded you all. Maybe just a little bit. But our goal today was obviously just to give you a good feel of some of the functionality and features that are out there. There are a lot, as you can see. So at least you know what some of them are, not all of them.
When does 2018 come out?
It'll be end of next year. So usually it's the fall. It ends up being released, what we found a pattern, and obviously Microsoft doesn't officially tell us that, but usually it's around the November timeframe. So then 2018 will come out. And then we wait usually a couple months after it's been released. Our policy, our best practices policy, is for that release. We actually upgrade solution systems. We run NAV, we're on 2016 today. We upgrade ourselves, we run it, go through that whole process, and then we send it out to our customers. So if you are interested in that, then we just schedule it out after our upgrade.
And we usually, so what part of the, I think it was when 2013 came out at the end of 2012. They've now consistently, every year, end of October, early November, there's a new release that's come out. And what they also do is they provide a monthly cumulative update for each version. So what we typically do, to Sarah's point, is we upgrade ourselves, but we actually wait until at least the first 1 or 2 improvement roll-ups come out. So we never install the general release out of the box. We let it get through the user community, partner community for a couple months and make sure we've got at least some of those little gotchas resolved.
So they correspond it with our partner conference, which is always in the fall. And so it gets released, we get to see what the new releases are, toolkit, all that comes out, and then usually it's the beginning of next year. So like in this case, if you're interested, we say, okay, let's talk about scheduling something out January, February of next year to start the first 2017 upgrades. And then we go through and kind of schedule it out throughout the year.
And you can't get caught on chasing upgrades. That's one of the things people always,
Right.
It's always tough to do because you're like, oh, I'm going to upgrade, we're going to take these new features. But ooh,
let's wait.
Isn't there a new release coming out pretty soon?
I know.
Yes,
There
there always is, right?
There always is. There always will be.
Yeah.
But the good thing is if you're not that far behind, they're quicker. It's when you're 5, 6, 7 years behind, it takes a little bit more time, lots of new features to learn. When you're closer together, it's simpler. So am I gonna turn the lights on and everyone's eyes are gonna like bats, we're like bats behave? Here we go. The lights on.